This is the pre-intro before the intro. We're going to have a brief description of vector and raster images, and there's going to be a brief demo of text shown at different magnifications on both programs. Then we are going to show a brief demo of how Photoshop works and its editing capabilities. Then we're going to briefly trace an image in Illustrator and show how that compares to a Photoshop file. Then we're going to talk about the different file sizes and how that makes a big difference on choosing whether or not to use Photoshop or Illustrator. Oh, hey, there you are. This video is going to talk about what the difference between Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. One uses raster artwork or images, and one uses vector artwork. And you may wonder why people may use one or the other, because both of them can kind of do similar things, but they really have specialty. This is going to be a short video about the differences so you can make a quick decision, and then you'll see, playing around with it yourself, the strengths and weaknesses of both. That's kind of a tongue twister. So this is Photoshop, and this is how text looks in Photoshop. It looks really good when you look at it up close, or from far away, should I say. And then, oh God, what's that? And this is how it looks in Illustrator. There's really no difference. But when we zoom into the Photoshop document, it still looks really good. But once we start getting to about 400% magnification, you start to see what it actually looks like up close. But to the naked eye, from far away, your eye kind of makes up the different. And when it adds the blur, it actually looks a lot more realistic. But when you go to the vector type and we go to 64,000%, there it is. Like, this is at 64,000% and it's still straight as an arrow, or whatever you say, super straight. Let's see if we can find like a round part here, because these are the parts that they tend to have the most trouble with. 14,000%, super round, super smooth. Then we go to the raster and it's like, ugh, we're at barely 3,200%. And this doesn't even go to 64,000% magnification. The most this can do is 12,800. And look at these gigantic squares. That's what your artwork looks like up close. It's just like a TV show. Okay. Now let's move on to what makes Photoshop special. Hey, it's my face makes Photoshop special. Let me cover it up a little bit. So from far away, it looks really good. You can't really tell. And as you get closer, this is at 1000 DPI. And we'll talk about photos in another video, how to get them at their best resolution. But as you get closer with Photoshop, you know, it starts breaking up. You can't even tell what that image is, but from far away you can tell. But when you get up close, it's like, what is this? You get the idea. It starts breaking up. Whereas if you go to Illustrator, let's go to my face, it actually looks exactly the same. You can import a raster image into Illustrator and it will be pretty much the exact same thing. People have a mistake of saving things in Illustrator and thinking that that makes it a vector graphic. But you have to create the image in Illustrator for it to become a vector, or you can trace it, you know, like here's my face and then here's my face traced, and you really can't tell any difference really. It's really surprising. I traced this with the high quality photo filter, but if you select it, you see that these are all little points, vector points, and it looks a lot worse from up close. The result is the same, you know, it's like my face. Actually, I think it looks better. And then there's the untraced, and this is like 1000 DPI in Photoshop. And then we have, look at that, that is a 72 DPI JPEG, which is kind of probably what you want to use for the internet. And it's not until you start getting up closer that you start seeing these, you know, really obvious blocks. And why would you want to see those? Now, what's the difference, you say, in any of this? The one thing about Photoshop is that, so it's really easy to manipulate a raster image. That's the beauty of Photoshop. Like, there I'm erasing it. I have like super cool LA hat. Look at that. It gets more complicated later, but you can't really do that in Illustrator. It's a lot more difficult, but it's really quick and easy. The best is making more than one mouth, because that's always super freaky. Let's just do that real quick. That's why Photoshop is so much fun. Oh, look at that. Oh, God. I got mouths for eyes. Look at that. Anyways, I'm going to save that one real quick. Mouths for eyes. Now, the beauty of this is that now you can see here the difference. Now, if you look at the size of these files, that mouth Photoshop file is almost 16 megabytes, or 160 megabytes, excuse me. And the original one was like 130 megabytes. And just the type, where I was showing you the type face, just this one is like, that one is 40 megabytes, approximately 39 megabytes or so. And then you see, start going down here, you have my face traced, which is only like 4 megabytes. Then you get down to lower and lower. The type is only 222 kilobytes, which is like a quarter of a meg less. But then you get the JPEG file on Photoshop, which is now 15 kilobytes once you convert it into a JPEG, and I lowered most of the settings, and so that works really well. So it really depends what you want to use. A lot of times on the web you want the smallest type of file. When you work with larger images or larger print types, or you just want the image to look really good on a really big screen, like a movie screen or something, you want the DPI to be really high, and it's going to be way larger than this. It's going to be terabytes of, I don't know how big those images get, but if you want your image to just be really sharp for, like, say for text, you know, this is, I mean, it really depends what you want. Are people going to be seeing it really up close? Do you care if they zoom in on it, if it's going to look blurry? Personally, I feel Adobe Illustrator is way easier to work with, especially with type and logos and things like that, designing things, whereas Photoshop is really good at manipulating things that already exist, like photos, or creating logos with maybe more photorealistic gradients and things like that. And that's a basic definition of the difference between, let me see, turn this off. I really mumbled up that last part. I was trying to say that those are the differences between Illustrator, Photoshop, and the difference between raster and vector. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel. I'm just getting started. The videos are going to get better as I do more of them. And please like it if you liked it, or even if you didn't like it, please like it, because that really helps this channel and to get me motivated. Good night or good morning, wherever you're at.